They have been living here for centuries, guarding their language and their identity. The Turkmens of Iraq, people caught in the storm of history. Empires rose and fell. Borders shifted. The new flags replaced the old ones. Through this all, they always stood their ground, unheard and unseen. This film is their story, and it's time for the world to hear it. Descendants of the Oghuz Turks, the same ancestral branch as Azerbaijanis, Turkmens are Iraq's third largest ethnic group, bound by language, culture, and memory.
Because we loved these lands, because we lived on them. Here, in fact, we, the Turkmens, descendants of the Ottomans and Oghuz, are living in these regions. If one part of our roots is in Kirkuk, another part of them is in my beautiful Azerbaijan.
For hundreds of years, they carried their identity with pride, yet too often they were pushed into silence. From the 20th century to the rise of ISIS, the Turkmen story in Iraq has been written in loss and resilience across every city and town they once called home.
Iraq Türkleri ilk defa
For the first time, the Turkmens of Iraq were subjected to the massacre in 1924 by Armenians. The Armenian soldiers, together with British troops, climbed up the citadel of Kirkuk and opened fire on the city from above.
Kirkuk, long seen as the cultural capital of the Turkmens, became a contested city, its people caught between powers, its identity under threat.
In 1959, Turkmen citizens held a celebration here. They wore their traditional clothes, went out into the streets, and greeted people as if it were a festival. But that festival was quickly turned into a bloodbath in the heart of Kirkuk.
One of Kirkuk's Turkmen leaders at that time, Colonel Abdullah Abdurrahman, rushed in his car to Baghdad. At the palace, he told Abdul Karim Qasim, "You are the prime minister. Do you know that Kirkuk has been cut off for 3 days and Turkmens are being massacred there?" Only then did the Iraqi army intervene and stop the massacre.
Long before Saddam Hussein came to power in Iraq, Turkmens already lived under pressure. Denied the right to speak their mother tongue, forbidden to give their children Turkmen names, they learned that even the simplest act of living could become resistance.
As a Turkmen singer, I was jailed 11 times. My pregnant wife and my 3 children too. My 4th child was born in prison. I endured all kinds of torment, but I never gave up on this language. I will not give it up, even if it costs me my life as long as I live. I will not turn away from the path I chose. The more abuse I suffered, the more devoted I became to this language, and I helped bind our people to it.
But this was only the beginning. Soon, a darker chapter would engulf them all. When Saddam Hussein rose to power in 1979, the Turkmen suffering deepened into systematic destruction. His Ba'athist Arabization policy uprooted entire communities, seizing homes and lands, rewriting history, and erasing identity.
As soon as Saddam came to power, he looked at the Turkmens differently. They feared that one day these people might revive the Ottomans, rebuild the Seljuks, or once again form a republic, a state of their own. That is why they pursued policies of denial and assimilation against the Turks in this country. And so, from the very beginning, on January 16, 1980, they executed 4 of the leading Turkmen figures.
During Saddam's rule, an even harsher picture emerged. First, Turkmens were stripped of their lands. Their farms and fields were taken away and handed over to others, especially to Arabs brought from the south of Iraq.
Saddam used to say, "Whoever goes to Kirkuk, I will give them land, and I will also give them 10,000 dinars. Of course, people, especially poor Arabs in Iraq, came immediately. They received 200, 300 square meters of land for free, and with 10,000 dinars, they built a luxury house and lived there. And this is how the Arabization policy began.
Since we were Turkmans, we weren't allowed to have a single house in our own name. We had to register our homes under the names of Arabs.
To speak Turkmen was a crime. To resist meant torture. To exist meant danger.
This time we experienced cultural annihilation. When Saddam came, speaking Turkic was banned. There were Turkmen schools, he shut them down. We had a cultural center, it was closed. Even giving children Turkmen names was forbidden in the country. The goal was clear, to strip us of our Turkmen identity.
The beautiful city of Kirkuk carries not only the scars of the massacre, but also the roots of a shared cultural soul. Here rests the father of the great Azerbaijani poet Muhammad Baghdadi, known as Muhammad Fuzuli, a name revered across centuries.
Because Fuzuli's mosque was here, because Turkmens lived inside Kirkuk's historic citadel, Saddam and his followers, the Ba'ath regime, constantly targeted the Turkmens with assassinations, assaults, and torment. They drove Turkmens out of here and sent them to the south of Iraq, where everyone was Arab. The aim was to change the demography and the geography.
Despite all the oppression, the Turkmens never bowed to the Ba'ath Party. We've always said, we are Turkmen and we will remain Turkmen. We are loyal to our people and we will never bow to anyone.
In Saddam's prisons, men vanished for decades. Some never returned.
I was sentenced to 20 years. I suffered so much torture and so much pressure. They even pulled out our fingernails. The suffering and pain are still carved into our minds. Those nights in prison still haunt our sleep, crushing us like a nightmare.
From 1980 to 1988, the Iran-Iraq War bled the land dry. Then in 1990, the Gulf War erupted, another storm that swept across Iraq. Saddam Hussein forced Turkmens into the front lines, sending young men to die in battles they never chose. But the people resisted. They did not want to kill, nor be killed for a dictator's wars.
After so many lives were lost in the Gulf War, society saw no meaning in it. An uprising broke out in Iraq, and some regions began to fall. Among them was Kirkuk. It fell from both entries, but in the end, Saddam managed to regain control. And how did he regain it? By killing people.
In the early 90s, protests rose from Kirkuk to Tel Afar. Saddam's answer was brutal. Those who spoke against war were executed, often without trial, their bodies left as warnings.
Tezahumatu suffered terrible massacres and executions under Saddam's Ba'athist regime. Our elderly, civilian men and women, the sick and the disabled were left behind. Saddam had them taken. One by one, he dragged everyone from their homes, lined them up here and shot them dead before the eyes of the people. He would not allow their families to come and bury them after. They would hear for 3 or 4 days under the sun and the rain.
From Tezahurmatu to Altun Köprü, entire neighborhoods were raided. Men and boys were taken from their homes. Nobody ever returned to the table to break fast with their families that day.
The Turkmens fled from Tuzhurmatu, Dakuk, Tezahurmatu, and Kirkuk toward Altun Köprü, but Saddam's army was waiting there and trapped them there. "Where are you going?" The people answered, "We are civilians. We are running because planes and helicopters are bombing. We are afraid for our lives." But the soldiers said, "No, you took part in the uprising."
Saddam had a special force here called Harazumri. All night, they shelled Altun Köprü with artillery. Innocent people suffered and were taken away. Where were they taken? To Dibis. Among them were our people from 14 to 75 years old, even children.
We were running through neighborhoods, barefoot, bareheaded. For God's sake, for the Prophet's sake, they are innocent. You will regret this. But no, they took them all away.
They were Turkmen, so they killed them all. What have the Turkmens done to you? They always guarded these lands. They defended Iraq, protected Kirkuk, and stood as guardians of the Turkmen regions. And now this is the punishment you give to them: killing people?
On March 28, 1991, during the holy month of Ramadan, over 100 Turkmen men were taken away from their homes in Altınköprü. They were brought here, executed, and dumped into these mass graves, their crime being a Turkmen.
They were fasting, hungry, thirsty, when taken for execution. We begged the soldiers, kissed their hands, please, they are innocent. But they said, no, we'll kill you too. No one was left. They pulled out 14 martyrs from my home.
A mass grave in Dibis swallowed them whole. For weeks, families searched, no graves, no answers, until a shepherd uncovered the truth. 100 of bodies buried in silence.
We came here 20 or 21 days later and asked where they were. A shepherd told us, I saw with my own eyes. They took them to the town of Dibis and shot them dead there. They were all massacred. It was a genocide in Altınköprü.
Some of them, 5 or 10 years later, their families came and found only their remains, pieces of clothing or an ID card. They brought them here to this cemetery, and we buried them.
It was a horrific scene. Their flesh was hanging loose. Not recognizing them, people began to identify them by their belongings and through their clothes.
My brother was such a tall man. You had to raise your head to look at him. When they brought him back, part of him was missing. Dogs had eaten his body. He was thrown out in the desert of Dibis.
When the Ba'athist regime finally fell, Turkmens thought the nightmare was over. But in the years ahead, Iraq drowned in explosions and violence. Suicide bombers turned markets, mosques, and streets into graveyards. Trucks packed with explosives, belts strapped to bodies. Nowhere was safe.
In 2005, at the explosion in Rezalu Akdam, 4 martyrs came from my home. 2 of my brothers and my brother's little son, just of 2 years old. When the blast happened, the child was thrown from his father's arms. The father saw his son burning in the fire. He ran to lift him up, but as he did, the landmine exploded. The father was gone too. My 2 brothers were gone. My brother's son was gone. Our son-in-law was gone.
It was a hot summer day in July of 2007 when a suicide car bomb tore through a crowded market in Amerli. 156 dead in a second, 255 injured. Entire families erased in a single morning. A boy of 13 survived under rubble, but 9 members of his family were gone.
Here were our homes. Many houses collapsed. 3 or 4 hours later, they pulled me out from under the rubble. At the time of explosion, my 4 brothers, my sister, my grandfather, my uncle's 2 daughters, they were all inside this house. All of them became martyrs here. Amerli gave 127 martyrs instantly. From our home alone, we gave 9.
Tuzhurmatu, a Turkmen city that has lived through many suicide attacks. On one such day, a man strapped with explosives walked into the marketplace, and in a single instant, life turned to tragedy.
Our town of Tuz Hurmatu gave many martyrs. 4 of them were my own brothers here, and others were my cousins. From our own family alone, we have 27 martyrs. They targeted the Turkmens. They struck our Turkman neighborhoods. They had nothing to do with anyone else.
Every explosion happens in the Turkmen regions. In Tuzkurmatu, in Tavuk, in Tazahurmatu, in Altun Kupri, in Kumbatlar, in Diyala, in Yaichi. In all our villages and towns, Turkmens gave martyrs. Turkmens were always attacked. Some were assassinated. Some Turkmens were taken away, and to this day, no one knows where they are, whether they are alive or dead.
In Tuzkurmatu alone, we have 3,000 martyrs. Alongside them, we have hundreds of wounded and many disabled trapped in their homes.
Saddam's fall in 2003 promised a new dawn for the Turkmens, but instead it brought even a darker night because the black flags of ISIS turned hope into ashes. ISIS, the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria as they called themselves, became the world's most feared terrorist group. By 2014, they controlled land where nearly 10 million people lived. They seized Mosul, swept into Erbil, and declared a so-called caliphate. And soon, they turned their eyes to Turkmen towns, seeing them as targets of both strategic and symbolic value.
Then came ISIS, and they did even worse. They invaded Iraq and turned on the Muslims, on the Turkmens. They attacked our dignity. They physically abused our families, our children, our daughters, our wives, all of them. After the assault, they killed them all. Some of them were burned alive, others they killed in different ways. They devastated the country, leaving nothing behind.
In 2014, ISIS laid siege to the Turkmen town of Amerli, but that is a different battle.
Mosul fell, Salahaddin fell. ISIS reached the very gates of Baghdad. From the other side, they took Diyala and came to Amerli. Amerli people is one family, one community. It was besieged, surrounded completely 360 degrees under siege.
Since we are a Turkmen region, they came to destroy the cities. They came to pressure the Turkmens and to oppress the people. But we stood up to them.
We stood against ISIS for 85 days. I, together with my brother and my father, stood side by side in a battle. They launched 3 attacks against us, but we did not surrender. My father had a saying, "We may die, but we will never surrender Amerli." And he became a martyr. Even after his martyrdom, we did not abandon his path.
No food, no medicine, no escape. Families fought with rifles, stones, even bare hands. Starving, exhausted, but still resisting.
Everyone, from children to the elderly, stood against ISIS. Even our women took up arms against ISIS.
There was nowhere to go, no way in, no way out. The fighting began. Every day bombs fell on us, and we remained besieged for 3 months. People were burned and killed. There was terrible violence. We decided we must not flee Amerli. No one should run.
I was only 14 when I went out to fight. My father boosted people's morale. He would say, "First, my son, come with me." The people saw that I was so young, only 14, yet I went out with my father. They would say, "He's only 14 and he's fighting. Wouldn't we go too?" And so everyone went out.
From Amerli, the liberation of Iraq began. It started here, then spread to Salahaddin, to Mosul, to Tal Afar. Amerli was the starting point, the place where the siege was broken and the liberation began.
The siege was broken, but only after unimaginable sacrifice. ISIS bombed mosques, destroyed shrines, and called it faith. But their terror had nothing to do with Islam. Terrorism has no religion. ISIS was not the defender of faith. It was its enemy. Bashir, the area of 5,000 people in the south of Kirkuk, had endured nearly 2 years under ISIS control. It was a place of fear where public executions, random bombings, and chemical strikes became daily terror. And yet, even as the gas settled in the streets, Bashir's recovery became a symbol of defiance. People joined hands to reclaim it, with the memories of chemical wounds still fresh in their lungs.
Chemical weapons forbidden against humans, yet they brought chemicals and used them on our Turkmen people in Teze Hurmatu. Many lost their lives and became martyrs. In the streets, day after day, we gave dozens, even hundreds of martyrs.
In Teze Hurmatu, that sickness still lives on. Many of our people suffer from cancer, many have kidney disease, and many lost their sight.
Bashir was not an isolated case. 2 months prior to this attack in March 2016, ISIS launched chemical mortar rockets from Bashir into the nearby Turkmen village of Teze Hurmatu. Among the victims were children. Toddlers died immediately. The total casualties ranged from hundreds of injured to multiple fatalities.
ISIS sent about 5 tons of explosives. In the Ashia neighborhood across from the Rasul Mosque at midday, just after prayers, while children were resting at home, the bomb exploded. In that single neighborhood, 100 houses were leveled with all the people inside. In one family alone, 18 members, children and the elderly, were buried under the rubble. Not all the graves you see here have bodies inside. Some were never found, destroyed together with the bomb.
The Turkmen presence was way beyond the north. Arbil, Diyala, even Baghdad are the cities where their schools, mosques, and markets once thrived until war and terror drowned out their voices with blood and fire.
Every home gave a martyr. Some gave 2. We are the Turkmen here. There is no home that did not give a martyr.
They hit this place with chemical bombs and brought truckloads of explosives here. Still, our people did not give up. They stood up and fought ISIS. We never bowed to ISIS. We would not let them set foot here and insult our land.
For generations, Turkmens lived through executions, bombings, and terror. History tried to erase their names, their language, their very existence. Yet they remained. Today, they speak their mother tongue without fear. They give their children Turkmen names with pride. They tell their story openly, no longer in whispers, but in the voices that rise.
We will never give up on our language or on our land.
We gave martyrs, we had the wounded, our homes burned, we gave all of that. But what we did not give up was our language, our religion, and our homeland. We stood up for this land. This land is ours, and it will remain ours.
For the sake of our country, even if we give our children, we will never turn back from this word. We are Turkmen, and we will remain Turkmen. The strength of the Turkmen cannot be bent.
This is their story, a story of sorrow and of strength. And now that it has been spoken, it will live on, carried forward, never again to be silenced. The past cannot be changed, but the future is being rewritten day by day by those who chose to stay, to believe again, and to rise.
Bizim şehitlerimiz